Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Caroline Garnett McGraw, and I'm with The Clearing, a non 12-step residential dual diagnosis addiction treatment center. That's a bit of a mouthful, so I like to tell people that what we do is help people not to hate themselves anymore. And that's a really relevant lead into today's topic, which is judgments. And one of the most painful ways that we hurt ourselves is actually through our judgments. But first, let's dial it back a notch and talk about what are judgments in the first place. So judgments are beliefs that we hold against ourselves, against others, against the world, and the nature of reality. They are labels created by our mind to put things into categories. So they tend to be pretty binary. This is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And a way to spot judgments in your own mind or in the world around you is to listen for the words should, would, could. Anything that's in that conditional tense in grammar tends to be a judgment. So, to give you a couple of examples, she should have been here on time. He shouldn't have done that. If only is another good indicator of wishful thinking and judgments. So, if only the clown had not, shown up late for the birthday party, the kids wouldn't have melted down, for example. So look for those words as you're speaking, as you're thinking, and pay attention to the judgments that are coming up in your life. And in this video, we're going to talk more about judgments against ourselves. But in a forthcoming video, we'll talk more about projections, which tend to be other-oriented. There are judgments on our stuff against other people. But the really important thing to remember about judgments is that they are subjective, by which we mean that they're not absolute truth. They're filtered through your perception of reality. So to give you an example of how this works, you can have the same event taking place in the physical world, and different people will have very different perceptions of it and different judgments about it. So the obvious and extreme example would be something like 9/11, which obviously was a tragedy for many of us here in America, where I'm recording this video. We saw the towers fall and there was grief, there was horror, there was devastation, right? But for a very small group of people, aka the terrorists or whoever is behind it, they saw it as cause for celebration. They had achieved their mission. That was what they set out to do. And that is a really extreme example, obviously, but it goes to show how the same event can cause very different reactions and different people have different judgments about it. So why do we talk about this in the context of addiction and recovery? The reason is because our unquestioned judgments often cause us a great deal of mental and emotional pain. So when we go around thinking things like, my parents shouldn't have hit me, or, that boyfriend of mine shouldn't have left me, or they shouldn't have fired me, or I should do all of these things, I should be able to achieve all of these things, and I'm not achieving them, and so I failed. And those are all of these judgments that we come up with. And if we pay attention to how they affect our body, they really hurt. They're heavy, they're painful, they bring us down. And we now know that when we're in a lot of mental and emotional pain, we're extremely likely to turn to an addictive substance or an addictive behavior to try and just cope and to try and relieve some of that pain. So unquestioned judgments cause mental and emotional pain, and that can lead to addiction, especially as that pain piles up over years and years and years. So how do we let go of our judgments? How do we work with them? So this is a simple process, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily easy. And especially when you're first starting, it can be so important and helpful to have a trained professional, a counselor, a therapist work with you on this. But you can also do this work and start by yourself, because we believe that everyone has the resources that they need to heal within themselves. It's just sometimes we need other people's help to access those resources. So to begin, the first step to healing from judgments is to identify them. And you might be blanking and not know where to start, one good place to start is if the next time you feel really irritated or really annoyed, grab your journal or a piece of paper and do a free form write. So for 10 minutes, just write anything you want to, no censoring yourself, just completely let it all out and vent and vent. And notice the times where you say things like should, would, could, when you use the language of judgments. Notice that. I would recommend burning what you wrote later or shredding it so you don't feel like you have to censor yourself. But it's a helpful way to get in touch with the part of you inside that is judging. And often it can be easier to work with judgments against others first, but we'll talk about that in our projections video later. But once you've got a self-judgment, for example, one of mine could be, I should be better at math than I am. I tend to score well on verbal testing, but math testing, I'm okay, but I'm not super strong. So I should be better at math is a judgment I had against myself for pretty much my entire educational career. I still use calculators to get tips in restaurants. That should give you an idea. And I pushed myself to go to advanced math classes, which is bananas. But anyway, so first you identify that judgment. You've got that. And then you're ready to start working with it. So when you're doing this emotional work, it's really important to center yourself, to go to a place inside yourself that is as peaceful as you possibly can. So that means taking several deep breaths, picturing someone that you love unconditionally, picture a child, picture a pet, and just go to a place of love within yourself. And then revisit that judgment and say it to yourself. And then you can think about questioning it. There are a lot of great techniques for that. Byron Katie's The Work is one of them. But a fundamental skill that we teach in our program is self-forgiveness and forgiving ourselves for the judgments that we hold. So to use my example about math, the way I would work with that judgment is to put it into this framework of self-forgiveness. I would say, I forgive myself for judging myself as bad at math. And the truth is that I was doing the best that I could. So, taking a step back, the framework is, I forgive myself for judging myself as blank. And then you fill in the blank with the judgment. And quick semantic note, don't include words that break it up. So don't say, I forgive myself for judging myself as being bad at math. Use the unfiltered, I forgive myself for judging myself as bad at math. We want the harshest judgment that you've got against yourself, not softened. We want to get the real thing here. And the truth is, the second blank goes to the voice of unconditional love. So you tap into, what would someone say if they loved you unreservedly? What would your best friend say if you have a best friend who treats you that way? So for me, what I hear when I work with that judgment against myself, that I'm bad at math, I should have been better, all of that, I can look back over my school career and see that I tried so hard. I did. I tried so hard. I had a tutor. I'd spent hours and hours on my math homework. I really gave it my very best shot. And so how can I have this judgment against myself that I should have been better when the truth is I was doing the best that I could at the time? And that's what I come to see when I do this exercise. And that is a very, very basic example. But if you sit with it, really listen to what that voice of unconditional love has to say to you. And in the moment, you might not feel that much of anything different. But as you go through your days and as you sit down the next time and work with some other judgments, you might notice that, wow, that judgment doesn't come up as much, or that doesn't bother me as much, or I really feel oddly peaceful about that. So once again, the framework is, I forgive myself for judging myself as blank, fill in your judgment. And the truth is blank, fill in what unconditional love has to say. So There's a ton more I could share. This is just a very basic overview of jumping in to healing and forgiving your judgments. And I hope that you have learned from this, because if there's anything that I've learned through my work at the Clearing, it's that judgment is self-condemnation and self-forgiveness is freedom, to quote the principles of spiritual psychology. So thank you. Have a great day and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.